Welcome back. This is the third episode in our Amazon ECS video series. In the previous video, we covered everything you need to know about ECS clusters and walked through a hands-on example by creating one from scratch. In this video, we'll dive into the ECS Task Definition, one of the most important building blocks in ECS. From here onward, we'll take a closer look at what task definitions are, what they do, and why they're essential for running containers in ECS. Now, let's understand what exactly a task definition is. You can think of a task definition as a set of instructions for running your containerized application. It tells ECS exactly what to run, how to run it, and with what resources. It includes key configuration details like the container images to use, CPU and memory allocations, the networking mode, any environment variables or IAM roles the container needs, and logging or monitoring settings. So, every time you run a task or a service in ECS, you're essentially launching it based on a task definition. Let's use our previous office analogy to understand the task definition in ECS. If the ECS cluster is the office building where work happens, then the task definition is the job description for a specific role inside that building. For example, when you hire a software engineer, you prepare a detailed job description that includes the skills they need, their responsibilities, what tools and technologies they need, what working hours they follow, and their salary, benefits, and many more. Similar to a detailed job description, a task definition in ECS includes the container image to run, environment variables and IAM roles, required CPU and memory, networking and subnet configuration, volumes, logging, and storage settings, health checks, retry policies, and stop timeouts. Just like employees can't perform their jobs without a proper job description, ECS can't run containers without a task definition. Without it, ECS wouldn't know what to run, how to run it, or where to run it. Now let's talk about why task definitions are important, continuing our office analogy. Just like a job description ensures consistency in defining a role, a task definition ensures consistency in how your containers are deployed and managed. ECS relies on the task definition to launch and manage your containers, consistently and predictably, every single time. So, the task definition defines what to run and how to run it. It enables repeatable deployments. Whether you're deploying one task or 100, ECS will use the exact same settings, helping you avoid human errors or configuration drift. It also supports scaling, facilitates troubleshooting, and supports version control, so, every time you make a change, ECS creates a new revision. That means you can roll back to a previous version or compare changes over time. Now let's move on to the hands-on part and create our first task definition. Let's pick up where we left off in the last video. Head over to the ECS console and click on Task Definitions in the sidebar. You'll see two options to create a task definition. The first option is to use the simple UI, which makes it easier to configure without writing any code. The second option is creation with JSON, which lets you define everything manually using a JSON schema. In this video, we'll go with the first option. So, click on Create New Task Definition to get started. Under the task definition configuration, the first thing to provide is a task definition family name. A task definition family is used to group multiple versions, also known as revisions, of the same task definition. The first task definition you create in this family is assigned revision 1. Any updates or changes you make later will be stored as revision 2, 3, and so on, allowing you to easily track and roll back if needed. Next, we need to specify the infrastructure requirements for our task definition. This is where we choose the launch type compatibility, which tells ECS where to run this task, on EC2 instances or using Fargate. Notice how the task definition options change based on what you select. When the AWS Fargate selected, the only supported network mode is AWS VPC. Also, options like task placement constraints are not available for Fargate. But when Amazon EC2 instance is selected, we get more flexibility. All network modes become available, and I can use placement strategies and constraints. When creating a task definition in ECS, you can actually select multiple launch types. This means your task definition will be compatible with either launch type. So, while the task definition can support multiple launch types, you cannot mix them within the same service or task run. For example, you can define a task definition that's compatible with both EC2 and Fargate. But when you run a task or create a service, you must choose either EC2 or Fargate, not both at the same time. Since I already explained about launch types in detail previously, I'll just proceed with the EC2 launch type for this task definition. The operating system and CPU architecture setting defines the OS and architecture that your tasks will run on. For this setup, we'll leave the default value as it is. The network mode determines how your containers will connect to the network. For this example, I'll select host mode. And I'll cover ECS networking modes in detail in a future video. The task size is where we specify how much CPU and memory the task should reserve. The CPU is measured in virtual CPUs, and memory is in gigabytes. For this setup, I'll go with 1 CPU and 1 GB memory. Remember, for EC2 launch type, you can't request more CPU or memory than what your EC2 instance provides, since your tasks are essentially running on those virtual machines. For tasks running on EC2, these fields are technically optional, but it's a best practice to define them. If you don't, ECS treats them as unconstrained tasks, meaning some tasks might use more resources than expected, which can lead to issues for other tasks running on the same instance. The task role is the IAM role that your containerized application uses to make AWS API calls. If your app running inside the container needs to access S3, DynamoDB, or any other AWS service, this is the role that needs permission to do so. The task execution role is different. This is used by ECS itself, specifically the ECS container agent and Fargate agent, to perform operations like pulling container images from Amazon ECR and pushing container logs to CloudWatch logs. When you create a task definition, ECS does not automatically create these roles for you. However, in the ECS Task Definition console, it offers to create them for you if they don't already exist. So, if you haven't set them up before, you can simply select Create New Role and ECS will generate one with the correct permissions. So, for this demo, we can leave them as they are, and ECS will take care of them in the background. Task placement constraints allow you to control where your tasks run within the cluster. For example, you can make sure certain tasks run only on specific instances based on custom attributes or instance types. This is useful when you need tighter control over task placement, but for this video, we'll leave it at the default, which lets ECS handle placement automatically. Fault injection lets you simulate failure scenarios by intentionally stopping tasks or containers. It's mainly used to test how well your app recovers when something goes wrong, like if a task suddenly stops. Again, we'll leave this disabled for now as it's more advanced and will be covered in future videos. A container definition provides all the necessary details and resource requirements for a specific container. This information is passed to the Docker daemon, which uses it to run the container. In ECS, a task definition can include one or more container definitions, depending on how many containers your task needs to run. For this video, we will be deploying just one Nginx container, so we'll create a single container definition, which is all we need for now. So, under container details, let's start by giving the container a clear and descriptive name. Next, we need to provide the container image URI. For this example, I'll use the official Nginx image from the Amazon ECR public gallery. You'll find the link to this image in the video description below. Next, we need to define the port mapping for the container. A port mapping lets the container communicate through specific ports on the host machine. This is how it sends and receives network traffic. For our Nginx container, we'll map container port 80 to host port 80. Keep the default protocol TCP. To keep things clear, I'll also give this mapping a name. Keep the default app protocol HTTP. This setup allows external traffic coming to the host's port 80 to be directed into the container's port 80, where Nginx is listening. From the resource allocation limits workflow, you can define resource requirements for containers. In the CPU field, we can define the number of CPU units the ECS container agent reserves for the container. For this example, I'll assign one CPU unit. GPU is the number of GPU units reserved for the container. If you need GPU, you need to pick the relevant EC2 instance type when creating your cluster at the first place. For this Nginx container, we don't need GPU. Memory hard limit is the maximum amount of memory the container can use. If the container tries to use more than the hard limit, it will be stopped. I'll set this to 1 GB. The memory soft limit is like a gentle cap. Docker tries to keep your container within this limit when your system's running low on memory. It's not a hard stop, but more of a soft guideline. This should be less than the hard limit. I'll set the soft limit to 0.5 GB. This setup helps ensure the container runs smoothly without exhausting host resources. From the environment variables workflow, you can add variables as key value pairs that get injected into your container at runtime. You can add them one by one, or even bulk upload them using a file stored in Amazon S3. For this video, I won't be using environment variables, but in upcoming videos, I'll show you how to set and access them inside your containers. Under Log Collection, you can specify a log configuration to determine where your container logs are sent. For this setup, I'll use the default Amazon CloudWatch logs to collect logs. But if you check the dropdown, you'll notice several other logging destinations you can use based on your preference or logging strategy. So, these are the major configurations you need to set up a task definition. But before we finish, I'll quickly walk you through the remaining settings, just to show what else is available. From the volumes workflow, you can attach volumes either while creating the task definition or later during deployment. By default, AWS Fargate tasks get 20 GB of temporary storage while they run. If your application needs more space, for things like temporary files, caching, or other runtime data, you can increase this storage up to 200 GB by setting a custom ephemeral storage value in the task definition. From the monitoring section, you can enable application tracing and metrics collection using AWS Distro for OpenTelemetry, a tool that helps you monitor and analyze your applications. We won't dive deep into this in this video. Instead, we'll cover it in detail in a later video focused on ECS observability and monitoring. From the tags workflow, you can assign labels, so it will help you identify and organize your task definitions, just like we did earlier when configuring our ECS cluster. They're useful when managing multiple task definitions in larger environments. With all these configurations in place, let's go ahead and create our first task definition. After successfully creating the task definition, you'll see a summary showing the container details, allocated CPU and memory. Now, navigate to the task definition section in the sidebar and click on the one you just created. You'll notice that it starts with revision 1. Whenever you update this task definition in the future, for example, to change image versions, resource limits, or environment variables, new revisions will be created and grouped under the same task definition family. Now, click on the task definition, revision 1, and open it. Go to the JSON tab, and you'll see the complete JSON configuration for this task definition. This is the exact configuration ECS generates behind the scenes when you create a task definition through the console. Next, if you head over to the IAM console, you'll notice that a new task execution role has been automatically created for this task definition. Alright, that's the end of this video. In the next episode, we'll dive into ECS tasks. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.